and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Moving from pizza and the pizza wars to oil and the oil wars, because that seems like a good transition. Okay, so Joe Biden is escalating against Russia and just any country we don't like that has oil. I mean, I'm sure it's a coincidence and they're all doing bad things, but and he's basically saying that they're hurting our election system, which of course we know doesn't work to begin with. And it's like, you know, paper, it's like paper mache. You just poke a hole through it and they're just like, we don't care when it's local. We just care when it's overseas and we don't like you when you have oil. So let's talk about it. So President Joe Biden discussed foreign policy and the potential for bipartisanship in Washington during one of his first major sit-down interviews with ABC News' George Snuffleupagus. The president's answers gave insight into the administration's emerging foreign policy. We know where it's going. We've already been seeing where it's going. As well as the White House coming strategy for passing its policy agenda through the sharply divided Congress. I love how they have still gotten to the point where they're like, we control both houses. We don't know what we're doing. We can't pass anything. We're really sorry.
It's sharply divided, Dan.
We're really sorry about that.
Sharply divided.
So on Russian President Vladimir Putin, a declassified document released Tuesday found that Russia and Iran, again, just happens to be two countries we don't like that have oil. I don't know how it worked out that way. Attempted to influence the 2020 elections in the United States through influence campaigns that employed disinformation and other clandestine operations. Yeah, it's like, at best, it's like, okay, they spent less money in Facebook ads in an election than Coca-Cola did, but okay, that's a huge deal. Everyone worry. Don't worry about the actual system, worry about the Russia. Biden was unequivocal about his response to the election interference, saying he will pay a price because, you know, threatening Russia with their main export of like just holding on to nukes is a wonderful idea. He warned, referring to Vladimir Putin, because of course he did. We've had a long talk, he and I know him relatively well. That sounds like a Trump quote already. And the conversation started off, and I said, I know you, and yeah, this sounds like Trump said this, and you know me. If I establish this occurred, then be prepared. That was a sentence that existed somewhere. Biden said of the relationship with the Russian president. If you guys can tell me what that actually meant, I would appreciate that. When asked by Snuffleupagus whether he thought Putin was a killer, Biden concurred, saying, I think I do.
Really?
I'm sure he said it in that term. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out later. On Afghanistan troop withdrawal, with a looming May 1st deadline for the U.S. withdrawal troops from Afghanistan approaching, Biden acknowledged that a full drawdown may be difficult to meet because, you know, we've been in there for 20 years. Another year will make a difference. I'm in the process of making a decision now as to when they'll leave. Biden said of the U.S. troops in Afghanistan, quote, the fact is that it was not a very solidly negotiated deal that the former president worked out. I mean, we lost. So, like, what does he want? Like, we don't leave and like, never mind. I think he still has like the George Bush, like, this is how we'll win. They'll all agree with us in democracy and they'll just give us the oil. It'll be great. Anyway,
nope.
On May 1st, the withdrawal date was negotiated by the Trump administration in February 2020 as part of a larger peace deal between the Afghan government and the Taliban. Peace between the government and the Taliban has been tenuous. However, with threats of violence and instability pressuring the U.S. to remain in the country, Afghanistan is where you invade when you want to make the final nail in your empire go. It's where you end. It's where Russia went to Afghanistan, they collapse. Afghanistan, every time Afghanistan's invaded by a major empire, the empire collapses soon after. I'm not sure. That might be a coincidence, just like we are going after all these oil It's, Biden is doing exactly what we thought he was going to do. It's the one thing that I appreciated about Trump, besides what he did with Iran and the Iran deal, which I did not appreciate, is he was at least not expanding our war efforts. He was in between maintaining them and drawing them down. But for a U.S. president, that's pretty good. Of course, Biden gets in. Our bar is, of course, the lowest. Biden gets in immediately, escalates in Syria. He's already trying to blow up after complaining that Trump hit the Iran deal, which you can call him on, but you have to go back to the negotiating board and you have to go, look, we're really sorry. We'll undo the sanctions, but then we're going to do the deal again. And if you don't go with it, we'll do the sanctions again. But Biden's literally just pulling what Trump did. He's not changing the policy at all. And in Afghanistan, Trump actually had a withdrawal. Of course, Trump was doing this knowing that Biden would have to deal with this, which is why he did it. But at the same time, we shouldn't be in Afghanistan. We're just wasting money there. We could be spending it here, giving people homes, getting people's college debts reduced. But no, America doesn't have any money to do anything for you. If you're a wealthy contractor, military or otherwise, keep going to war.
Yeah. Greg Fiorella.
No, well, you want to go first, Fee?
Okay. Well, so very rich of Biden to consider Putin a killer when we have so many military bases throughout the world. We just bombed Syria. We allow Saudi Arabia still, of course, on the defensive, not the offensive anymore, but on the defensive to continue attacking Yemeni people in a massive genocide, right? We continue funding Israel with these weapons that are being used on Palestinians, and any sort of pushback on that is now anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, we have a population that is largely completely just falling apart because they don't have the means to pay their rent. The eviction moratorium, once that's up, you are going to see disaster upon disaster. Then on top of that, you're talking about Russia again. After the last 5 years of Russiagate were a complete and total joke, a true conspiracy theory that built up this group of blue QAnoners who are every bit as just completely duped by this whole scenario of Russia coming in and meddling in our elections. But at the same time, we just said this was the most democratic election ever in our entire history. Nancy Pelosi said it. So if Nancy Pelosi said it, it must be true. But all of a sudden, no, never mind. Russia and Trump once again tried to influence the election against Biden. And they bring in Ukraine, which was the story of you've Hunter Biden and Burisma. But it was also a story that was largely taken off the interwebs in order to protect Joe Biden. And it was actually proven through the money lines tied Nancy Pelosi, that tied John Kerry, their family members, and the Bidens into with Burisma, but also funding neo-Nazis in Ukraine. It's just ridiculous at this point that we're having this conversation once again regarding Russia, trying to blame Venezuela as well. And if anybody has ever meddled in our own elections, it is the United States government. Yeah. And I mean, we're huge election people. Everybody knows that. So at the risk of saying something the wrong way, I do want to say, like, the fact is, it is partial. It is ridiculous to hear Joe Biden talk about somebody like Vladimir Putin, a non-NATO enemy, of being a killer when we continuously kill people through sanctions, through regime change, through our imperialism, and our very own people in the United States by not giving them the basic means throughout this pandemic.
Yeah, when I heard this, I didn't know if I wanted to laugh or cry, because I laughed at the fact that he's calling, Putin a murderer, I'm saying, who's murdered more people than the United States empire, but then I immediately turned to cry because a lot of people do, they buy into this stuff. And let me just say this much: Vladimir Putin's interference in the election, whether it be memes in 2016 or, the Bernie Sanders Jesus one with the rainbow one, when Bernie Sanders is going like that was the meme that came out of the Russian toll farm. That got me. See, I knew it would get you guys.
I forgot that.
I thought the elections were fair and balanced. And then I saw that meme and I'm like, something's wrong in America.
Russia. Yes. Not Putin, Rasputin. But, it's just, and people need to face the facts. I mean, what Vladimir Putin did was a small, tiny, minuscule drop in the bucket compared to what Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook did this last election, how much money they spent with these unconstitutional, unfair drop boxes, which were highly populated throughout Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, in Democratic areas where you can get one every 2 square miles, except if you're in a Republican area, you have to go play Where's Waldo and find one. It's really like that. And it just does make me want to cry when I hear these things, because I know a lot of people buy into this shit. And it is very sad. But I do want to add one last thing too, Daniel. It's not only just the countries that have oil, it's the countries that have socialism, because that's another thing they want to stop too as well. They don't want us to see Americans a socialistic country that thrives, which gives the people education, housing. It gives them a bottom floor, which, where they don't have, like in Cuba, they don't have the homeless problem that we have over here. So, I mean, this whole situation, when I watched this thing, and, like we said, when it came to war, Donald Trump wasn't expanding it. I mean, he wasn't a peace dove by any means whatsoever.
No, he was
and
not.
his policies in the global South were friggin' awful. Joe Biden as well decided to make Juan Guaido the interim president, which I've made Fiorella the interim president. If you'd like to be our interim vice, I can.
Oh, we already
for you and
actually,
stuff.
someone in the comments a couple months ago did a super chat, and we named them the interim president of America. So we've already had
We
that.
have several
Awesome.
interim presidents.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Well, we're going to have a lot of it's the same thing like there's the Roman Empire, how they had 4 Roman emperors at one point. So there we go.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing that happened, folks.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, this is really a scary thing because right now what they're doing is they're manufacturing consent. You talked about Mr. Snuffleupagus over there. That wasn't real journalism. That was propaganda and setting up the kabuki theater by the mainstream
It
media.
blows my mind that the former press secretary of the Clintons
Yes.
isn't a real journalist. I don't get it.
Well, actually, I would like to add a very interesting note. And it's more of a challenge to you, Craig, because you said you're feeling sad and angry. I was first hearing this whole story, especially as the fallout with a debate between President Putin and President Biden. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw this video just before I got to the studio, and that is Putin wishing Biden good health. And he said, hey, don't take this the wrong way. I wish you good health. And he said, hey, look, you calling me names. What I am rubber, you are glue. He's saying this is something like children do. And the thing is it's very interesting that Putin is calling out Biden. I think a lot of people tend to forget that our previous American presidents, be they Republican or Democrat, have done a lot of questionable policies and implemented a lot of harsh actions and sanctions towards other countries. Now, I always say this to diehard Republican voters and diehard Democratic voters. How would you react if this happened to you? And the one thing they universally have in common is silence. They don't know how to respond, or they give me some word salad response that doesn't really answer the bigger question. And so long as you have the silent, obedient consent of Team Red and Team Blue and people willing to become good puppets, that's fantastic. All right, great. I guess we have people who are just really well trained because of the horrifying, fantastic work of our corporate media that has basically fed us these neoliberal, neoconservative lies that have divided us. But on a side note, too, when Putin said, hey, I wish you good health, it's ironic that Biden had almost had a near horrible fatal flaw climbing up to Air Force One. I don't know if you noticed or not.
3
Daniel.
times he fell down.
3 times he fell down. So I'm just saying, hey, hey, look, guys, I think actually Putin is saying to Biden, hey, look, dude, I know you're old. Take good care of yourself. I'm not having any part of this. Because you always notice that Kamala is like waiting in wings, like right behind him, eyeballing him, like, sign this.
I love the fact that America's like, hey, we're about to elect someone if Biden goes away that never had anyone vote for them, never got any delegates.
No delegates.
But we're free. Yeah. Don't forget that.
No delegates at all. I think that's
dropped out of her state, but couldn't even run in her state primary. Dropped out before
doesn't like her.
Her own city. I mean, it's terrible. And by the way, Fiorella did point out, though, Kit D, that it was Sloppy Joe, National Sloppy Joe Day the other day. So him falling down that stairs, up those stairs, whatnot, is just par for the course. By the way,
this is offensive to Sloppy Joes.
I'm sorry.
Actually, you know what?
Violence.
It is violence.
Yes,
sir, you are now canceled.
Here's a question: what is the current market price for 3 Biden dropping down the stairs and 1 Trump with toilet paper on his foot? What's the exchange rate?
I have no clue.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
Biden
hey, you know
is
what,
Biden.
audience? Why don't you answer that question in the comment section below? What do you think the exchange rate between 3 Bidens tripping down and Donald Trump walking with toilet paper on the shoe? You type it in the comment section below. There's no such thing as a wrong answer.
Can I point out one thing too, Kit? I just really want to point out too, because
I'll give you the final word.
When it was the Obama administration, it was Joe Biden who was the neo-hawk of NATO, pushing NATO on their border and whatnot. So Putin remembers this shit and stuff, because that was the one reason why, more than anything, I think Russia had such and Vladimir Putin had such a negative feeling towards America, is because they put ballistic missiles right along the Baltic states. And it was Joe Biden who was pushing that rhetoric. And he was also in charge of the regime change in Ukraine, giving Victoria Nuland the thumbs up. So I think Vladimir Putin's been waiting for this moment to say, listen, Joe, I know you're nothing more than a clown. You're deteriorating in your mental health, whatnot. You want to have a debate? Let's do this right now, because he knows how full of malarkey Joe really is.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
Basically. Come on, Jack.
Come on, man.
Come on. Hey, look, it's time for you guys to Biden it up.
There we go.
There we go.
What do we got next, Kit?
We're going to be moving on to our next one. Before we do, I want to give a shout out to Gloria Jones, $5 for the YouTube Super Chat.
What?
Big up to the Blank Censorship fam. Free. Take this, YouTube. Julius A. San. We'll let you decide who we're talking about. That's right. That's messing with the blind attack dog.
Yes.
And resist the Great Reset. We won't let the gatekeepers win. Absolutely. In fact, we're going to be talking about that on Saturday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll talk about the protest group that you were part of for Wednesday. On Wednesday the 17th. I actually gave a shout out to that on our Rockfin channel as well. Shout out to Roger Meadows as well, who gave us a $2 YouTube super chat. Guarantee you, Dan, those tourists with utensils.
Yeah, you know what,
this guy over here.
You know
Daniel's talking malarkey over there.
See, the problem with me is I'm very good at seeing how to get around your argument so you can't get me on it, and that's it. That's
Hold
what I'm
on,
terrible.
I'll find a way.
I'll
penetrate your forces.
I'm excited to see it happen.
You're being
Send
called
the
out
lecture.
here.
I know,
Roger Meadows. Roger Meadows, $2 says, Craig, BK or LA Dodgers? Choose. Which one?
Brooklyn Dodgers all day.
Oh my!
Look at this, abandoning his LA.
I was never an LA fan. I'm from Brooklyn.
You have abandoned the West.
What a shame.
Oh my
and went
Lord.
to the East.
It's kind of funny at the protest, and we'll talk about it on tomorrow. Is that I finished up with the Jackie Robinson quote, but I'll say that
Watch
for
this.
tomorrow.